Have you ever really stopped to think about who's in charge of the market these days? For the longest time, the answer was pretty simple. It was the big companies. But something massive has changed. We're about to break down a huge transformation in how companies and customers interact, and it all comes down to a whole new way of looking at things.
This image, it just perfectly sums up the new reality. Picture the entire market as this giant seesaw. For years and years, the corporate side was planted firmly on the ground, right? They had all the weight, all the power. But look what's happening now. The other side, our side, the consumer side, is on the rise, and it's tipping the entire balance.
And this is the absolute key to understanding what's going on. The role of the consumer has totally changed. We've gone from just being passive buyers, just taking what was on the shelf, to being really active evaluators. Today's consumer is more like a judge, kind of holding a gavel, and they're looking at a company's ethics, its values, its impact on the world, long before they even think about pulling out their wallet.
Okay, so let's dig into part one, the market's power shift. We're going to look at exactly how the tables have turned and what this new game actually looks like.
Think about it. In the past, it was all pretty straightforward. You needed something, a company sold it, done deal. The corporations basically set all the rules. But today, wow, it's a different world. We're looking for more. We're using what's called ESG criteria. That's environmental, social, and governance to figure out a company's real impact. And this isn't some small trend anymore. It's literally the force that's tipping that entire seesaw.
So that brings up a really important question. Who are these powerful new judges? Well, let's dive into our next section and meet the new consumers.
The main engine behind this whole revolution is a group known as the MZ generation. Now that's basically a mix of millennials and Gen Z. As this group, who grew up with the internet in their hands, becomes the biggest consumer force out there, their values are just completely rewriting the rules of the market. They're the ones standing on that seesaw, demanding that companies do better. So what really drives them? Well, first off, they demand authenticity. They can smell a fake from a mile away. They're digital natives, right? So they use social media and all the tools at their fingertips to research, to share information, and to organize, which makes their collective voice incredibly powerful. They also tend to value unique experiences more than just owning stuff. And maybe most importantly, they demand fairness in everything from how a company treats its people to how it treats the planet.
All right, so knowing their values is one thing, but how does that actually translate into real power? That brings us to part three. How we spend now, because it's not just about buying anymore, it's about sending a message.
For this new generation of consumers, pretty much every purchase they make is a statement. The kind of coffee you drink, the brand of shoes you wear, the phone you buy, it's all a way of showing the world who you are. Spending has become this powerful tool for self-expression, for putting your beliefs out there for everyone to see. There's even a name for it, meaning out. So, what in the world is meaning out? Well, it's pretty simple, really. It's this growing trend of making sure your spending habits line up with your personal beliefs. It's about making a conscious choice to turn a simple purchase into a meaningful act, an act of support for the kind of world you actually want to see. And this just shows it perfectly. Meaning out is the engine that's driving this whole power shift. It's that intentional, value-driven spending that adds all the weight to the consumer side of the seesaw. And it forces companies to sit up and pay attention to things they might have ignored before, like ethics and their environmental footprint. Now, this new consumer power, it really has two sides. On the one hand, you've got the reward. There's a fantastic term in Korean for this called donjo. It basically means to go out of your way to spend money on a company that's doing the right thing, to kind of teach them a lesson in success. But then there's the flip side, the punishment. And we all know this one, the boycott, where people collectively refuse to give their money to companies with shady practices. And what you end up with is this incredibly effective new system of checks and balances in the market. When consumers reward a good company with donjal, you see their sales soar and their value goes up. But when they punish a bad one with a boycott, well, that's a direct hit to their profits. It's a really clear, powerful system, and it's all driven by millions of us making individual choices every single day. Of course, anytime you have new rules, you're gonna have people trying to find the cheat codes. And that brings us to our next section, why you have to beware of false promises, and the rise of something called greenwashing. So, let's talk about greenwashing. This is what happens when a company pours a ton of money into looking eco-friendly, but doesn't actually do the hard work to be eco-friendly. It's a really cynical move, basically trying to cash in on our desire to do good without making any real changes.
But here's the thing. Consumers are catching on. Just look at that giant eye on the seesaw. It represents this growing sense of vigilance. People are actively on the lookout for greenwashing, and when a company gets caught, oh man, the backlash can be intense. We're not just talking about boycott, we're talking about a total demolition of trust. So what's the big takeaway from all of this? Well, that brings us to our final and maybe the most crucial section of all. In this brand new market, reputation is the new currency.
It all boils down to this really powerful idea. Back in the day, a company's assets were things you could touch, factories, products, money in the bank. But today, one of a company's most valuable assets is completely invisible. It's the trust that it's earned from its customers. And that trust, that solid reputation, it literally translates directly into real financial value.
And this right here, this is the ultimate goal. When that seesaw finds its balance, when companies are genuinely committed to good ESG practices and earn our trust, it doesn't just stay level. It becomes the foundation for something so much bigger, real, sustainable growth, shown here as this healthy, thriving tree. A company's good reputation becomes the very roots of its long-term success.
So let's just quickly run through that whole cycle one more time. It all starts with us, right? Consumers demand better from companies. The smart companies listen, and they build trust through real, authentic action. That trust then builds a positive reputation, which directly boosts their corporate value. And that amazing cycle is what paves the way for a more sustainable future for all of us. So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final thought. Every single time you spend money, you're casting a vote for the kind of world you want to live in. So in this new market where you're the judge, what story are your purchases telling? What is your wallet saying about you?